Teresa Toland from TANDEM 365. We've been learning a lot about 365, TANDEM 365, and all the services that they provide. Now we want to kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive inside and learn more about what it means to lead a team in that environment, and really in environments that are very much like all of ours. We may do different things, but there's so much that we can learn from each other. And so, Teresa, when you were there, you were part of starting TANDEM 365. And so I'm curious, what were some of the things that you had on your radar as you were starting TANDEM 365? And if you can think back to those early days and maybe some of the things that kind of helped you get through those early challenges.
Wow. Depends. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just thinking.
I know that's a big question.
No, I'm just thinking back to those very early days when you're just really the first person there is just me, honestly. And then you maybe then another halftime person, whatever. And then you start to think about the team that you're building and how you want that structure to look. And believe me when I tell you it's so different today than what it was back then. Like, you don't know exactly what a team can manage or a person can manage. You do know the type of person that you're looking for, and sometimes that's the most difficult. Healthcare professionals are interesting, especially nurses, I think, are very compassionate and very passionate about what they do. And so it's sometimes hard to decide. They want to spend most of their time on just the focus being the patient. I think every healthcare person feels that way, but they don't always feel like they have the time to do that because of every other thing they have to do. And so you're balancing that, hey, we're a new business, we don't know what this looks like. You're really looking for that flexible person that is really very moldable in some ways, but also just nimble. Like, our business was nimble, and so we needed people that could just flex and be nimble to whatever the environment dictated, and which we didn't really know. So that's hard, because some people are very hardwired to be very organized and systematic, and I don't want to vary from that because I know this is when I deliver my best care. And you're saying, well, we did it this way last week, but now next week and next month it may look this way. And yes, I know I told you this, but now I'm telling you that. And so it was really hard to find people who were interested in that at all. I think what enticed people the most was, wow, this is great. I can deliver care. I can be in front of my patient and give them everything at that moment. Or I'm not having to be distracted by a call bell or, another phone call, or distracting me from what you have my full attention at this moment. And they love that. They love that. Fast forward a little bit, now you're asking them to do that with 50 people instead of one, because you're still going to have to get that, that amount of, you still got to have that load that you got to carry to make sense. But the people that I was looking for were that type of people.
Yeah. And it is so important, I think, even today with the way that life is changing so fast. I mean, you think about 6 months to a year, and there's so much that happens in that time frame, that used to happen in 10 years or 5 years. And so the idea that things are going to always be just this way is not real. And so I'm curious, in the midst of this change and the growth that you've obviously experienced, how have you helped your team, or what are the things that you feel have helped your team to come together and be a really strong team, because you're meeting some really incredible needs, and that takes a team to do that. And so I'm curious, are there maybe a couple of things that you could share that have really made a difference with that?
Well, it would be probably my opinion, but in some ways I'm also very transparent. And a lot of leaders are not transparent, and they feel like there's just certain things you have to shield your employees from, or you have to protect them from. And I feel like being transparent as a leader leads to trust. Mm-hmm. And there are people who don't want to know. Mm-hmm. Just, I'll put my blindfolds on and my blinders and I'm going to stare straight ahead and that's all I want to know. And that's hard because I have had my employees say that before. That makes me nervous. That scares me when I know too much. But in the beginning, they need to understand, and when you're a startup especially, you need to be able to give them some satisfaction that your job's going to be here tomorrow and the next day and next week. And the reason it's going to be here is because we're going to make tough decisions. Mm-hmm. And we're going to make decisions that are going to help us be sustainable in the future and that our board is happy with. The people that invest in Tandem need to know that we're making good decisions. Right. And I included them in all those conversations. We started day one with having daily phone calls, daily phone groups that could be set up. So we talked about where we were, including once a week with the board involved. So we kept updates. And we do that every day of the week today. Each team has their daily phone calls. They share information. That's the way that we practice what we do. Also, when you're looking at your first managers or your supervisors, you're looking for someone who can lead with accountability in mind. And it's very hard sometimes. People want to, they want to bend a little bit. They want to be a little bit too flexible with the rules because we don't want to lose anybody in the beginning. But I'm just of the mindset that you don't need someone on your team who can't understand accountability. Mm-hmm. Accountability to the people that sign our paychecks or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think accountability, consistency is so important. Like not vacillating on your decisions. Coming into a room to talk to staff and they change your mind before you leave. Oh, you're right. That's probably not a good decision. Not that. I mean, you have to be able to be the one who's not always everyone's favorite, who sometimes is the person that has to set the tone for the organization, and sometimes that's hard for people. Yeah. And there are people who can do it, and there are people who just can't do it.
Yeah, I do think that consistency and building trust, as you were talking about, and even the accountability, which we tend to think of in our country as kind of a negative, is actually a positive because it is demonstrating how important their role is, that we do take that seriously, we do hold ourselves accountable. And I know that one of the things that you have put a lot of effort into is the culture within Tandem 365. And the things that you've been talking about are kind of a piece of that. I wonder if you could share a little bit more about that culture and why that's so important, and maybe a couple of ways you would describe the culture there.
I always think that's such a great question, and I think we talked about this before, that culture is so hard to define. Like if you want to put a definition on it, it's very difficult. And I think I remember in the past, organizations I've worked for were always talking about building a culture, and then you just kept thinking, what is that? And what is culture? And I think a culture is something that can just develop also from in any organization. It's why it looks different in organizations, as it can develop based on the people who work there and the values that you decide that you have. We named core values early on in our organization, but even so, those are just words to me. The core value really comes from how you respond and how consistent you are, and then what you decide is important, most important in your organization, which for us is always changing the lives of others, transforming our lives of our people that we serve to where it's better. But not even just our patients, it's also our employees. How can we transform our employees to where even if they don't stay with us forever, they can move to some other organization and bring something that they learned from us to that organization? Because we forget that you're grooming people from the day they enter your organization to be the best they can be for you, but also the best for someone else. That's what you hope for. Maybe you get people that are really young coming to work for us. They're not going to stay with you probably for 30, 40 years. They're going to move on. And I think that culture, the things that I've looked at that are important is the accountability part of that. Like you said, it's not the most popular word in our society today, but if you think about it, it is still very important. It's how you deliver that message, that making them accountable. I think professionalism, you know, inside or outside of work, that's probably old school, but you know, how you conduct yourself, even wherever you are, really matters to who you truly are inside and who you can be for the organization. The professionalism, the way you get up in the morning and how you decide you're going to even dress to come to work. And it's become such a casual world and environment. How do we still say we're still speaking professionalism, even if we're a little more relaxed than we used to be, but the values are still there? And that's kind of the hardest message to send, but because you have a lot of young people that have come up during COVID and all kinds of things that changed perspectives on that, as we all know.
It definitely did. But I think that there's a lot of wisdom in what you've shared in terms of how we lead and how we encourage other people then to be leaders as well, and to understand what that looks like. And it sounds like you've just been doing, I know you do such a great job of transferring that to others within your team and helping them to embrace that, which is so fulfilling. I'm curious, if you were talking to a fairly new leader, what might be one tip that you would share with them that maybe you wish somebody had shared with you back when you were early in your journey as a leader?
One tip. Well, I've had a lot of new leaders, actually. I think the ability to receive feedback when you're brand new at something, being able to take the information that someone gives you and use that to like grow to your next step. Not be offended or you know, sometimes you take feedback and hopefully it's given in the right way, because sometimes it's not. We call that feed smacked, but you know, but just taking that feedback and applying it and listening and watching. Like, find someone that you really admire and that you can connect to, and then listen and use each of those experiences to grow from, because you're going to mess up. You're going to make decisions that you regret, and you're going to think, wow, I really did that badly. But take that and learn from it. I think many times, at least for me, I've taken all those experiences that at times were so stressful for me, or organizations that stressed me out, and I learned from that and think, if I ever have a chance, I don't want to do that. I want to do it differently. And as a new leader, just take all that in. Find someone that you really admire. Find someone that you want to be like, that you want to mentor. Find a mentor that you like. That you really, admire, and then use that to grow.
Yeah. I really appreciate that tip, because I feel for all of us, leadership is a lifelong journey. You never know enough, and so it's a great opportunity for us to stay open, stay humble, and be willing to learn from each other. If someone wanted to know more about Tandem 365 or connect with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, I think the best way to learn about us probably is to go to our website, which is www.tandem365.com.
Okay.
And then you can always call our office if you're interested in our services, which is 616-588-5290. And just ask for anyone there if you're wanting more information. They can get you to the right place.
Teresa, thank you so much for being here today and sharing with our listeners. I'm sure a lot of them will be interested in the services of Tandem 365, but also will have gleaned a lot of information from you about leadership and how to do that well. Thank you for just making such a great impact in West Michigan.
Well, thank you, Rhoda, and thank you for having me.